With me now is two high-profile Twitter users, the editor of Common Space, Angela Haggerty, and journalist with The National, Shona Craven. Angela, if I could just start with you. What's your experience with using Twitter?
Horrendous, I think, in a word. I mean, and it's true, there are some great things, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of plus points for using social media, otherwise I don't think any of us would do it. But in the last 5 or 6 years, it has been really, really quite severe harassment, abuse over that time, which has even included a court case and a conviction, a 6-month prison sentence for one man for issuing threats. So it has been quite sustained. For a long period of time, I was kind of okay with that. But see, after 5 or 6 years, you can't deny that even if you have the thickest skin in the world, it's taken a toll on you. And I think that's me, a stubborn person. I refuse to back down when people try and shout me down on social media. But I know a lot of women who don't really want to have that fight every time they want to say something, and it really drives them away. Right. So it's a problem.
Shona, does that tally with your experience? Is this something that you experience as well?
Not abuse, no. I never have received any messages that I've even thought for a second, you know, do I need to report that? I think probably we use Twitter in particular in quite different ways. For me, sort of personal postings would be something for Facebook or maybe Instagram, whereas Twitter is more for work and for debate. And sometimes, yes, the debate is very robust, but that's kind of what I'm looking for. And quite often when someone makes a provocative comment or a dismissive comment, I'll just ask them to elaborate, and they won't reply. But if they're posting something that's obviously just a bit aggressive, I'll just ignore it. And I'm not suggesting you can ignore the volume of abusive messages you receive, but I think there is an argument for blocking and moving on, and certainly not retweeting some of the worst messages, because I think that probably plays into the hands of people who are looking for that kind of attention.
Right, now, you're both working in the media sphere. We've heard from politicians in that report. I mean, is Twitter really just for journalists and politicians? I mean, like, do real people, inverted commas, actually use the site? Is this just a problem between ourselves, Angela?
No, because it's not exclusive to Twitter. I mean, I know of friends of mine with teenage children, for example. Now it's Snapchat that they use rather than Twitter or Facebook these days, and the level again of bullying, harassment, particularly towards young women, that goes on there is really quite extreme and frightening, and the impact that has on their mental health. We hear more and more about problems that young women are having these days, and social media is often a contributing factor in that. Mm-hmm. So it's not exclusive to Facebook and Twitter, but it's true that politicians and media professionals probably use Twitter more. I think it gets a higher profile for the problems, but it's widespread.
So if this isn't just restricted to Twitter, I mean, how do we solve this problem? There have been calls for Twitter to step in, Facebook to step in, but I mean, is it down to the media companies? Is it not down to the users themselves?
Yeah, I mean, I think Twitter, makes a fair point that saying it doesn't have the power to shape the way people interact with each other. Yes, the platform allows for anonymity, which does seem to be a big barrier to certainly prosecutions, even for very serious messages. But I think really the work has to begin with people speaking to each other in a much more appropriate way, and even looking at the way our parliamentarians, particularly at Westminster, interact with each other, and the level of language that's used there. I think possibly they could be setting a much better example.
Angela, you mentioned this has been in the last 5 or 6 years that you've seen this level of abuse. What's that down to? What changed 5 or 6 years ago?
I think it's really just from when I started using social media more as part of my work. And as your profile starts to rise throughout your work, the abuse definitely gets worse. But I disagree to some extent. I mean, I think that there is a role to play for the social networks to play here. I mean, but this week we've also been hearing about the Cambridge Analytica files, the extent to which social networks have access to our data and how they can sell our data on to advertisers and how influential that can be. They get so much out of us as users, and I think that they have much more of a responsibility to us as users when the impact of some of this stuff on its users can be really quite severe. And as we're saying, we're talking talking politicians and media professionals, and yes, we have a thick skin, a lot of us, we kind of expect this in our line of work to an extent, and we get a lot of support often from our employers. But that's not the case for everyone right across the board. There are normal people out there who are not working in these kinds of industries, who are just trying to use social media as a social tool, and they're experiencing the same kind of bullying and harassment, and it could be having really quite a terrible impact on their mental health. So I think we need to hold the social networks a little bit more to account.
Sorry to cut you off, but so in that case, is there a chance this could go full circle, that we'll see people cutting off from social media?
I think it would be a shame if people cut off from social media based on hearing that it's this toxic environment. I would really hope that, while I understand the importance of raising the issue, that young women and women from all professions, particularly underrepresented women, wouldn't be deterred from even going on, even opening an account, because certainly you do to some extent get back what you put in. If you sit and post some benign tweets or retweet things that are of interest to the people you know, you probably aren't going to get any abuse at all. And I'm not saying that other people deserve it, but you can avoid it.
Okay, well, I'm sure lots to discuss there. The discussion will continue. Unfortunately, we are out of time, but thank you very much for joining us on STV News tonight.